We've got one more question from the realtors, and then we're going to move to audience questions. And we're going to shift gears a little bit. This question is related to employment and home affordability. The question is, home affordability is sustained by good employment and income. What is possible from the city government to enhance employment opportunities?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that can be done, but there are limitations under Arizona state statutes. One of the things that I think was very important was bringing in ASU to town. In our city and many rural towns, we have kind of a chicken and egg situation. What we have is we want to bring in large companies or a manufacturing or maybe a knowledge-based company, but then they don't have the workforce, or we don't have the workforce, or we educate a nice workforce and yet we don't have a company. So I think because you educate the workforce and they go, well, you don't have a company I can work at, and they go somewhere else. But that doesn't mean that you just simply give up, and we don't. As I said in my opening remarks, we have brought in new companies. Romer Beverage, they had a choice. They decided to come to Lake Havasu City, and they're going to be expanding. We brought in Anderson Toyota, very important. They were going to actually stay in Kingman, and they brought a $3 million annual payroll. Incredibly important. We continue to look for light manufacturing. We continue to look for companies that do have some level of knowledge-based businesses, realizing we don't have engineers on every corner like there was when I was in Silicon Valley. An engineer, if he didn't like Apple, went to Intel. If he didn't like Intel, they went to Oracle or to AMD or Symantec, or you kind of get the picture. But here's some things I think we can really do. I'm very excited about the opportunity for a motorsports facility just south of the airport. And it isn't just the facility itself. Yes, that will bring jobs. There'll be some construction jobs, and of course, individuals to run and operate that facility. But what I'm excited about is the cottage industry it will bring along with it. There will be ancillary businesses that locate near that track to help the racers. You're going to see companies such as tire companies. We already had calls about hot weather testing of tires. They said, "Do you have hot weather?" Yeah, I think we do. I think we passed the test. But you're going to see people who manufacture specialty engines, transmissions, bodywork, bringing highly skilled individuals, higher paying jobs to our area, and that will eventually snowball. And frankly, I think what eventually could happen, ASU continues to expand. You bring in a motorsports facility, it creates more business demand for air travel, and maybe we can finally get an airline to come to Lake Havasu City. And we got to do that through business travel. The one-off pleasure trips is not enough for an airline. So I think if we focus on those things, focus on what we have, not what we don't have. And everybody tells me that this is a gearhead town. So let's focus on the gearheads and let's do the right thing and bring in that motorsports facility.
All right, now let's all play by the rules. A good point. So let's try to keep the applause down. I'm going to go to Dr. Ullery next with the same question. Thank you.
I served 3 terms on the PD Board of Directors, and having been here for a quarter century and intensely interested in the economic development and the welfare of the town. You can hear a lot of excuses, like we don't have a railhead, we're not on a major interstate highway, we don't have a big airport with very long runways. But I kind of look at Kingman, it sets on a major railhead, it's on an interstate, and it has a mothballed military airport with a very long runway and a lot of facilities. I don't see them burning up the economic development landscape. Certainly not much any better than us, and about the only thing they've got going for them is an effort to centralize and concentrate county government in downtown Kingman as a downtown renovation project using our tax money, of course, in the process. But we share some common problems in this county, not only with the fifth lowest income area of the entire country, which is embarrassment, but we also have for the entire county a significantly below average level of educational attainment. Until we fix that problem, we are never going to be very competitive in a really tough job market of attracting the kinds of businesses and industries that pay very well. But I'm also impressed with a couple of models I see. And when we were working on the university project in particular, I kind of like Flagstaff and its economy. Got a university, it has tourism, lots of retirees, and a lot of seasonal second home owners. And that university and that economy has done pretty good in attracting some high-tech, very well-paying businesses and industries. Following that flag model, if we can help ASU and MCC grow to a combined campus, combined student enrollment of 6,000 students, we could see an economic impact of $150 million a year. Our tourism-based economy generates only about $170 million a year. So I think with a vision and with a plan built around a new industry, that of higher education, and one with an objective of raising up the educational attainment level of our citizenry, we have the potential to double the economic base of our community. Double it. That's where I think we need to go.
Thank you. Mr. Becker, what would you do to enhance employment opportunities?
That's a good question. I would say the mayor certainly ought to know the answer, since he's got the job. Good answer from Mr. Ulrich, I think. I especially liked Mark's use of the term ancillary. Sounds good, doesn't it? Ancillary. Out there by the Budweiser distributorship, the only business that you see in the much ballyhooed industrial park. Budweiser. That's not, you know, I like the Clydesdales like anybody, but I'm not surprised that they came here. I did have something to say about that in my closing statement, so I think I'll quickly talk about that right here. We must do more to put storefronts in the many empty retail spaces around town. I mean, are there a lot of them or what? The whole mall, all sorts of empty retail space. That will bring in more jobs and boost the economy. But to do it, we must attract people to move here and make costly investments. How are we going to do that? They're going to expect better amenities, including less expensive, better quality medical, dental, and veterinary care. How many of you have been to the dentist recently? What these guys are up to now? Oh, it'll be $5,000, you know. Oh, we can't pull a tooth, it's against the rules. Yeah. So we got to do something about that situation, don't we? And how about this? Speaking of well-educated people, I think I qualify pretty well there. Never got invited to an interview at MCC. Filled out that lengthy application several times. Never admitted to an interview. Never admitted to an interview at the BLM when I applied to be a wildlife biologist. They deleted my application. and all these nice online applications that we all love to fill out when we're looking for employment. They can play all kinds of little games with that. The point is, what is the point of providing more jobs if employers keep discriminating against older citizens or better educated ones who they consider overqualified, or who aren't friends, relatives, or members of their club or church? How many know what I'm talking about here? I've heard a number of people complain about discrimination in Lake Havasu City employment for reasons like that. Gee, didn't they ever get the news that it's illegal? Just because we're an isolated community in Arizona doesn't mean we can pull anything we want, right? That's going to help a lot. Get people in jobs who need them. Stop discriminating against people for this reason or that. That's going to help. ASU, buy that property out front of the campus. Wouldn't that be a great place to have some shops, some benches and tables, some student-oriented businesses? Opportunity right there. They're trying to sell that property. I mean, are they just going to move out of that location soon enough? I don't know. But if they want to make that a nicer campus, do that. Have the public come over there and see what's going on over there. How many of you have been to ASU? Yeah? Okay, a few people. I've never gotten the impression they want me to come on over and check it out. You know, I don't know what's going on.
All right, if you would just hold on to the mic, we're going to move to audience questions. And so I just want to remind everybody the format on the audience questions. Each candidate will have 4 minutes to reply and make sure that they each have an opportunity to reply to each question. And so we're going to stick with the economy track here for a second. The question from the audience is anything being done to bring more chain stores to our city, such as Trader Joe's, Olive Garden, Bath and Body Works, etc.? Mr. Becker, you have the mic.
How would I know? You know, give me a break. Is anything being done to bring more chain stores to Havasu? That's a question for the mayor, I guess. And if I were the mayor, I'd be on the horn all the time. Hey, why don't you guys come out to Havasu? Trader Joe's, that's a good store. You notice how popular those new dollar stores are? You can get some real good deals in there. So that Trader Joe's is kind of along those lines, you know, a little hipper kind of a store. What else you gonna do? I'd be calling them up, and don't laugh. You know, I'm good on the phone, okay? And some people may know that if they've ever talked to me. And I could call those guys up and say, come on, get your buns out here. What do you think is wrong with this economy? I'll tell you what's wrong. Everybody's trying to play it
Can you
safe.
stop the clock and say, it would help me out, I know, we're getting riled up a little bit, but we need to hear the responses, okay? So if we can just kind of keep it down, that'd help out a lot.
Are you talking to me or them?
I'm talking to them, but they're on my side, so
I'd
that's all
like to
right.
keep it a little more entertaining. Sorry, Roger.
It's your mic, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, what do I say? I think we could have a bus connection here. I understand this town used to have a bus connection. Greyhounds, you know? What happened to that? You know? I mean, come on. The price of gas these days, you can't go anywhere without spending $500 to go to LA and back, right? Why don't we have a Greyhound connection? What happened to that? The mayor said we ought to have a connection with the airport again, which we used to have. That was a good idea, you know. So my wife's sister came in on that once or twice. It's like, yeah, we need that. We need a bus connection, I think. And we should lobby to either get that or have low-cost connections to where that bus is. Where's that, Parker? Needles? I don't know. I'd be looking into that. Well, I'd be hustling if I were the mayor to get jobs here. And if I heard of discrimination or somebody who needed to be convinced to come here to open a store, I'd do my homework and make sure they knew how interested and sincere I am to get them here, because we do need more jobs.
Thank you. Dr. Ulrich.
The chain stores have a particular, typically objective that's almost always related to population base. We're at 53,000, and it's not an isolated a distance from the interstate. One of the PED board members who's in this audience in this discussion we had a year or so ago about the Target store that was looking at Havasu for quite some time. And this PED board member had an opportunity to talk directly to the Target store official, who was one of the key people in making the decision to take that store to Bullhead City. And it boiled down to access and numbers of people in the surrounding county areas and the proximity of those people to that particular store. So I don't know, we'll always face that difficulty, but still stores are looking at Havasu, and I think we all can appreciate that. It gives us more options. One particular area of controversy is where perhaps like Olive Garden and some of the news reports of a backdoor deal of tax incentives or rebates might have been floated around, and a lot of that's happened with some of the bigger stores. Today's News Herald had an excellent editorial on that process, citing the issues of the city being involved in picking winners and losers in the retail industry, with evidence quite clear that seldom ever do big box businesses increase the sales tax base, primarily because of the number of small shops and businesses that get put out of business in the process. You can look at what happened with small appliance shops and electrical fixture shops, lumber yards and cabinet shops when both Home Depot and Lowe's came into town. Well, I shop at both of those stores. I send customers there, and they are a good addition. But I think for the city in particular, being exceedingly careful not to put city tax dollars in inappropriately in incentives or tax rebates of any kind that you can't give to every other small business in this town. I think we got to watch it. Avoid that. If you can't support all of your small businesses in the same manner with a similar type of incentives, supports, and backing, don't do it for the big box multinational corporations. That's corporate welfare. I don't think it fits well with the very conservative demographic we have in this little town.
All right, and Mayor Nixon, same question. Is anything being done to bring more chain stores like Trader Joe's and Olive Garden to the area?
Of course. But let's talk about some of the realities of bringing some of these stores in. For instance, we always hear about a Trader Joe's or a Costco or whatever. My conversations with Costco are that basically you're looking at a requirement of about 250,000 people within a 45-minute drive.
Wow.
Right around in there. They might be a little flexible if it takes 55 minutes, but you're looking at 250,000 people. We only have 220,000 in all of Mojave County. We would love to have a Trader Joe's, but they have some of the same requirements. So we go after those that maybe aren't as strict on some of the population. And you did hear about the fact that Olive Garden was considering coming to town. And I actually offered to go to their headquarters and say, how do I get you to town? How do I get you to town? They were going to go out by the mall, or in the mall actually, and chose eventually not to do it. I could never get them to let me come to their headquarters. Maybe, I can't explain why, but they would not. I was also the chairman of the PED, so I understand how these things work. And we try every day. We work very hard. We contact companies. The PED is in constant contact, giving site selectors a lot of information and encouraging them to see the jewel that we have right here in Lake Havasu City. Now, when it comes to rebates, let's understand what those really are. They're available to any business. But here's what they have to do, and here's how they work. And I'll give you a great example. Anderson Toyota, that Mr. Ullery is saying, is a multinational business, I guess, owned by a Lake Havasu City resident. And here's what happened. He came to us right after I became the mayor, and he says, I found a location in Lake Havasu. I'm considering Lake Havasu City, or I will, if not Lake Havasu, I will stay in Kingman. But it doesn't have sewer, and it doesn't have roads, and it doesn't have water on that piece of property. When are you, city, going to put that in so I can have a business? And we said, we can't afford to do that. But here's what we'll do for you. You put in $3 to $4 million of infrastructure up front. You put it in, and we'll let you pay yourself back for that investment over a period of 10 to 12 years by retaining 1/2 of the property tax. And if at the end of that period of time you don't get, or did I say property sales tax? If you don't get that back at the end of that period of time, you benefit. In other words, you got infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, for less than full price. So that's all they are, is a rebate. You're giving them their money back so that you can attract those businesses. That is the only legal thing we can do in Arizona, is to provide those rebates. So those aren't upfront sales tax. We don't ask you to put and risk your dollars. They risk the dollars. If their business is successful, we are successful, because at the end of that period of time, we get to keep all the sales tax. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So we have probably time for a couple more questions, and at risk of eliciting a bunch of reaction, I'm going to go to this question because it was fairly popular in one form or another, which, and if Mr. Mayor, if you'll hold the mic. The question is, how do you feel about the wayfinding project? Is it money well spent?
That's a great question. It really is. And I've got Doug Traub right now just staring me down about that project. He's right there. He can grab me at any moment. The whole idea behind wayfinding is not signs. The whole idea about wayfinding is to encourage people to stay a little longer in our community, to understand where things are, maybe understand that there's something that they can do that they didn't know. An example that I heard the other day was somebody that went to Santa Barbara, saw the sign to the Santa Barbara mission, and they thought, oh, didn't know that there was a mission here, stayed an extra day, spent a little money. Now, having said that, I voted no. And I, as all of you know, I'm a financial guy. I look at numbers. I look at all numbers all day, way more than I really should be. But I try to evaluate it, because what I did was I said, okay, I understand the quality of life issues there. I understand that you're trying to attract new businesses, or excuse me, tourists to stay a little longer and that sort of thing. But I'm going to just do a simple math calculation, because if somebody comes to me like you and says, well, why would you have wayfinding and spend $500,000 or $600,000? If the math makes sense, then I can explain it. But for me, and I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, the math didn't make sense. For instance, $500,000, your money, I said, how much in retail sale activity from the wayfinding project would we need to get that $500,000 back? Take $500,000, you divide it by 0.02, our sales tax, it's $25 million bucks. And so I felt that while it was possible, it was too long a period, and I couldn't, in my own mind, using my core values, justify it. So I decided to vote no. I certainly understand the arguments for it. Interestingly enough, ADOT has agreed to actually have Lake Havasu City be a test case for all of the state of Arizona. So from one standpoint, I do hope I'm wrong. Because if it generates $50 million in new retail sales activity, boy, I voted the wrong way. But I just couldn't see it. And maybe through all of the programs and forums that they're going to have for our citizens, we'll be able to hone those numbers down and get a better sense as to exactly where we're at on that investment. And for me, I think also just educating all of us as to exactly why it's important. ASU did decide to put in $24,000 toward that project. I will say, I think we need a sign for ASU. I was shocked that we don't have a sign for ASU, and we couldn't get one until ADOT changed their rules on wayfinding. They said there wasn't enough enrollment. And I thought they had like 50,000 students, but granted, they're not all here. But so yet. But anyway, I think that's really where I boiled down to, is that I decided that I just couldn't justify the number, so I voted no on Tuesday. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Same question.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask Mayor Nixon.
Actually, just to make sure that you're directing the response to me and not to the other candidates, please.
I'm wondering, to you, I'm wondering, did that pass? Did we get the $500,000 for signs? I'm wondering what we could have spent that $500,000 on. I'll get to that in my closing statement, my vision of what we should be doing around here. I guess I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like maps. You know, I'm good at reading maps. I can be driving along halfway across the country, glance down at the seat, and know exactly which route I need to take. I don't understand this GPS, you know, and all the rest of this nonsense. I heard some guy talking about how he's going to follow his GPS to a concert from the San Fernando Valley where he lived out to somewhere in the LA Basin. He wasn't going to look at a map. He was going to follow his GPS. It's like, well, I hope it doesn't take you right through Watts, you know? I don't understand that stuff. As far as the signs, I don't particularly like signs. I mentioned to the mayor 3-4 years ago, Mr. Mayor, my wife and I like to drive down to Site 6 and park in front of the, you know, where you see the view of the dock, across the lake to California. But there's a problem. We got those big dome LHC ordinance signs right in your face when you're trying to see the view. And they're every 12 to 20 feet. There's several of them. You know, don't take bottles on the beach, blah, blah, blah. Right in the middle of the view. Who came up with that? I mean, think about it. One of the nicest views in the area. Let's slap a sign right in their face, you know? Oh, that's a good one. Yes, sir. You know? Whatever, whoever came up with that, I don't know, that is ridiculous. I see this big guy here, he's not too happy with me. He's in charge of this or something. Okay, sorry, I cannot go for this wayfinding sign thing. We couldn't find the London Bridge for a few minutes. We looked around a little, there it was. You know, the main drag goes right over it. You know, what is this? Everybody stupid? Why can't we have points of interest maps that are handed out all over? What do we got to spend $500,000 for on this? Sorry, can't buy that one. Thumbs down on that one. Too bad they passed it. Maybe that's why I'm running for mayor, you know? This kind of nonsense.
A major study of the city's Main Street commercial district did result in a report by a nationally recognized team of architects, guys and gals that design entire cities. And they produced a report called RUDAT, R/UDAT. And among the findings were several suggestions for improving signs and direction for residents and visitors alike. And I thought it made sense. I thought it'd be a good investment. And I assumed that it would happen in increments, some money budgeted that year, some money budgeted the next year. But what has emerged, especially from the social media, is a lot of harsh criticism of the current project, and it may simply be a part of the fact that wayfinding is a term used by marketing people, an inside description of some sophisticated way of going about doing signs and directions. And maybe that's a part of it. Maybe the average voter doesn't understand the significance of the term, doesn't want to understand it. But I also recognize that the amount of money being allocated all in one budget year, I think the first was $750,000, and I don't know where the CVB is getting all that. Ask the city for $500,000. Of course, the CVB is totally city funded, so it's all our tax money anyway. I don't know that I've paid that much attention to where all the dollars are coming, but for sure, there are a lot of critical emails, a lot of critical postings on various orchids and onions pages, and I think a part of it is just a reflection of the political crazy season. A part of it is a competition for budgeted dollars. A part of it comes from people who are extremely upset over HAT not being funded in the way that some people wanted, and this money perhaps was competing for those kinds of dollars. Maybe a little more tactful approach, maybe use of words like signs and directions rather than wayfinding might have said a little better with some of the more critical citizens who are particularly concerned with how the city is spending money in an election year. And that all gets kind of crazy. So I think all in all, I support the concept of improved signage. I'm certainly disappointed we don't have signs up for ASU. There's one for NAU, which has one room in an MCC building, and they do distance learning, which is correspondence types courses, so it's not a real university campus at all. We've got some room for improvement there, but I think maybe it's not going to happen now, but having backed off that a little bit, budgeted a little bit differently, a little bit this year, a little bit next year, and there would be no big fight over it.
And I do want to thank the Lake Havasu Association of Realtors for putting this on. You did a great job. Frankly, I think you heard some very different stories this evening. In my view, it's kind of like the old Charles Dickens novel, The Tale of Two Cities. On one hand, you have a lot of negative comments, a future, a vision, positive what we've done in the past, and what we can do in the future. And I think that's incredibly important that we remain positive. We heard several proposals for new taxes, and yet for me, I said I don't want to raise your taxes. I'm taxed enough, folks. I don't want to see my taxes go up, whether it be a sales tax, a property tax, or any other tax. I think this city government can do just fine with a little less, which is why I lowered your taxes by $800,000 in the Great Recession. And I've been challenged by that by one of my opponents, but the numbers don't lie. You can go to the financial statements and see how taxes that we collected dropped by $800,000. And then we put away a $2.5 million rainy day reserve. Why? It's pretty simple. When I became the mayor, the reserves were abysmal. I had a sewer project that was over budget. I had a water fund on the brink of bankruptcy. You have to plan, you have to put money away, just like you do. If we can, this time I want to be prepared for it. I want those reserves available so that we don't have to take these drastic cuts like we did before. We reorganized it to make sure we don't have to increase it. I made those tough decisions during the Great Recessions, and I'll continue to make those tough decisions. But it can be done, and I'm more than happy to make sure, or I'm more than happy to make those decisions. But let's talk about a vision. Lake Havasu City, let's have a partnership with Arizona State Parks to finally get that mainland launch ramp that this community has wanted for 2 to 3 decades. We can make that happen. I'm going to be meeting with them in the next 30 days. How about expansion of ASU with an integration of the campus community within our own beautiful community? Expansion of our tourist base, along with improved amenities for our citizens and visitors alike. We build parks for citizens. As I said the other night, just try to close one. I'll hear from our citizens. A very vibrant downtown with new shops and restaurants, pocket parks, and gathering places. We're working on that as we speak. And our plans are working. Our plans are working. When I look at the retail sales activity, that retail sales activity is almost at the levels we were pre-recession, 06, 07. So the plans are working. Construction isn't going to be where it was back then, but it was a bubble, so you can expect that. But the retail activity is there. I talked to the Chamber of Commerce, I talked to the Builders Association. They're giving new members in record numbers starting businesses. New businesses bring jobs. These are local entrepreneurs making good choices, and we all benefit from that. As I said before, I want to allocate resources to our roads, and most of all, I want to continue good government, not personal agendas. Look what we did during the Great Recession. Imagine what we can do together now that the economy is getting better. I ask for your vote on August 26, 2014, and thank you very much for being here.
The mayor sort of did a few indirect shots there. His closing statement, I think it's okay to say back to him, he hasn't raised taxes? What do we call all those fees? Fees to get in to see the fireworks at Cerro Park that we used to get to see for free. At Rotary Park. Big fees at Rotary Park when the Lucas oil drag boat race is going on. Kicking everybody else out of the park, out of the aquatic center, out of the dog park, taking over the channel walk. And having a New Year's Eve party for people who can afford $40 a pop at the gate. Means you and your wife are spending $80 on a ticket just to get in. So that means $100 for New Year's Eve. Gee, I think I'm gonna stay home this year. You know what I mean? Who can afford to blow dough like that? I don't know about you, but we got bills coming in, and we're on a tight budget. I don't understand that kind of thinking, sorry. So, getting to my closing statement. After covering that. Positive, which I notice, by the way, the mayor always talks about being positive. He's given me a lecture or two on it over the years when I call him up on the radio and give him a little stuff. Get positive, Tom. The glass is half full, not half empty. And it's like, well, I notice that the mayor remains positive as long as you agree with him. But when you start disagreeing, you know, you're not being positive. Strange definition of positivity. I'd like to see us building upon some of the good things that I do see going on around here. Believe it or not, I do see some good things. We have many beautiful homes and yards. I think we can all agree on that. Some beautiful houses here. Boy, I wish I can't imagine the property tax they're paying, but you know, the yards, some of these beautiful desert mimicking yards you see that some of the richer people have. My God, those are beautiful. The excellent landscaping at Albertson's parking lot. You notice that? I noticed that right off the bat when they put that in. Wow, look at that landscaping. That's the kind of parking lot we should have all over town, where they care what it looks like. Something that if you're waiting out in the car for your wife, it's a nice place to park. In fact, we should plant, also another thing is the shade structures at Bash's. What an excellent improvement that was when they put those in. You know, in the middle of summer, get in there under the shade. We need that kind of stuff, and I noticed we got more of that, including what the mayor mentioned about at City Hall. Like, that was a good thing. I agree with that. And I think we should promote the planting of shade trees all over town. My God, it's hot here and there's very little shade. You notice? I sure do. For several years now, I've been advocating that we build an amphitheater. Build an amphitheater in a natural setting, using local labor, private funds on private land, where we could have concerts under the stars all year long. Perhaps even a symphony orchestra, and attract a more refined breed of tourists from all over the region. I think we should also try to acquire more vacant land and keep it natural for wildlife habitat and for people to walk out there and see what this desert can look like when it's not all torn up. We need to curb bad driving habits, especially among the young, and we should encourage the young to go to college. Okay, a good education through directed study is about much more than landing a cushy job and achieving status and security. It's about becoming a well-informed citizen, which will benefit everyone you meet. Conclude by saying there are many things we can do to make Lake Havasu City an oasis on the Colorado. My idea for a theme, okay? And we need leadership, creativity, and hard work. And I want to say it. That much left to say.
Everybody's got the same allotted time.
I'll give you 30 seconds of my time.
All right, we can do that.
Thank you very
We
much.
can be, we can be a little flexible here.
Broad-minded approach and a festive atmosphere are fine, but we should not encourage decadent excess, nor discourage more serious pursuits or a thoughtful and reflective attitude. I don't personally object to nearly naked young ladies enjoying the channel. But we should not condone incipient alcoholism, which is clearly evident there, nor for that matter promote drinking among our older citizens at almost every public event. To restore the proper balance in this, and I think we need a fresh perspective. That's why I'm asking for your vote.
These forums presented by the Realtors, they're the best, most professional, and well organized, and I truly appreciate that civic service. And this is my first opportunity as a candidate, never before in my life run for a political office. Never expected to this time, but it just kind of got a level of irritation that pressed me to the limit, and I did jump into a race, and it's quite an interesting experience, to say the least. I'd like to return to a form of government we once had, a council manager form, which is the predominant form of government in the United States. The other alternative that is typical is a mayor manager council form of government, where you have a strong political leader, and I think that's exactly where we're at. We departed from the corporate style chief executive officer position, which is so much a part of the governance management structure, and the chief executive officer of a large state system of public colleges. I understand that corporate structure very well. In those cases, I've always served under public elected boards quite similar to that, of MCC. Well, I think what we have is a very, very strong mayor with a city manager that is almost totally subservient to that form of government. I'm uncomfortable with it. My 30 years in higher education as a dean, campus CEO, and assistant CEO, I am more comfortable in the corporate style governance structure. I've, in those positions as an executive officer, managed college systems with a larger budget, more employees and more constituents than that of Lake Havasu City. And particularly, I think I know where to look, as MCC has done, for fund surpluses, reserve monies, and the rainy day accounts that I would like to use to pay down that sewer debt, to restore some semblance of fiscal, particularly to reduce the debt load burden that is so overwhelming with the citizens of this community. You know, another issue that I experienced was quite different as I watched the refuge annexation vote go down. It was a city council and an electorate that lost confidence and trust in city government and voted it down. Quite a surprise. I thought at the time the tax revenues would be good for the town, but the concept, for some reason, seemed to boil down to one of trust of government, and that skepticism and lost trust was displayed in a very high level of criticism. So why am I running for a mayor? I think primarily, as I search my soul on those issues, it's to restore trust in city government. So I am asking for your support and your vote and your trust